so much for joining me today. I'm super excited to chat about something that almost every growing business runs into at some point. And usually it catches leadership off guard, but that is the systems that got you to your first $1 million in revenue are not the same systems that are going to get you to 10 million. And that's not because you did anything wrong. It's because growth increases complexity. And when complexity increases, but structure doesn't evolve alongside of it, that's when the pressure starts to show up and things get a little bit harder. You start to feel that pressure. So if leadership has started to feel a little bit harder than it used to, this is probably why. You built something real, you got to your first million, maybe 3, 5, 10, whatever that looks like. And that didn't happen by accident. It happened because you were close to everything. You understood the moving parts. You could feel when cash was tight. You could sense when your margin was getting pressured a little bit. Maybe it showed up a little higher or lower than you thought it would be. You had a really good understanding of your business. And that instinct, it wasn't luck. It was just that close proximity to it. And that's why it works so well in those early stages. But we all know that as you start to scale, having that close proximity doesn't always, sit there. And at some point, you're feeling those shifts. Revenues increases. You have additional e-commerce channels that are getting added. If you're, product based company on that way, you may have your team is growing. You got to add a lot more people to it. Your inventory is growing. Money is moving all throughout the business at different times. And what used to feel manageable starts to feel harder or heavier, however you want to associate that with it. But it's not broken. It's just, hey, it feels hard today. So you find yourself saying something like, well, you know what? I have all the data. It's just, for some reason, it's hard to get a clear picture of what's going on. And that sentence right there kind of tells me everything I need to know. So let's look at this. Let's make this tangible for a second. You're running QuickBooks Online. You have spreadsheets, probably a lot of them, as I know with a lot of smaller businesses is, there's probably 10, 15, 20, 30 different spreadsheets. Ones that are used for inventory tracking, cash flow projections, margin discounts. Maybe you're computing commissions off of them or some type of forecast that only one person understands because they hold the keys to that Excel spreadsheet. So technically the data is all there, right? But if someone in a leadership meeting were to ask, hey, what happens to margins if discounts might increase 5%? Or can we confidently hire 2 more people next quarter? And the one that I always hear a lot is, what does cash flow look like 90 days out from now if we had maybe this scenario happen right now? Can you answer any of those in under 5 minutes? Or does someone need to stitch together a few reports, grab those Excel spreadsheets, make some pivot tables to get the answer? So that stitching stage is kind of where that maturity gap is. Most teams think they might have a data problem. They usually don't. It's more of a design problem. So let's look at a specific example. If you're an e-commerce business and you're using QuickBooks, there's probably a strong chance your books only show net deposits from Shopify, Amazon, Stripe, whatever you're selling through. And I see this with a lot of my clients. So you have maybe $100,000 in sales that month, but 82,000 of that is what comes through the bank. So QuickBooks is going to say, hey, you know what? Shopify, you made $82,000. It reconciles, it balances, it's technically correct. However, what happened to that other $18,000? Well, technically that is gross sales minus our discounts, our refunds, our processing fees, shipping fees, platform fees, multitude of different things that come in there. When you only record the net, you're going to lose the story of how gross becomes net. And that's where you lose the story. You lose that visibility that comes with it. And when you lose that, my thing of what I've seen for people is that's where you start to lose what is the true margin. What effect are discounts having on my sales? Let's say discounts are creeping in from maybe 8 to 14% over the last 2 quarters. Would you see it clearly if you only brought in the net? Or would you just feel those margin pressures? And also, if you aren't looking in just one place, now you got to go out and look at a Shopify report. We all know Shopify doesn't make some of the reports easy to find, to pull a lot of that data. So now you're just feeling, oh my gosh, I got to go pull from all of these areas. So this is where it gets to be a little bit tough. And that's where you start to feel those pressures because you may not have the full story. So early stage reporting really gives us the answer of, hey, did we make any money? Mature reporting is going to answer us, hey, what's changing underneath? What differences matter at scale? Now, let me give you a framework. I think about systems maturity in probably 3 different levels. First one being survival. This is you're watching your cash, you're watching revenue, you're making sure payroll clears. Your instinct is what's going to fill in all of those gaps. Do I have enough money to cover payroll? Do I have enough money 30, 60, 90 days out when I have these large bills coming in? That's early stage. That's how you're going to be able to know. But then stage 2 starts to come in. And this is the reactive stage. This is where, hey, you're cruising along. You're probably somewhere between $3 and $10 million. You have reports, you have data, you have spreadsheets. You can answer most questions, but it's usually after the fact. Your margins might have tightened, so then you got to go investigate it. Cash is dipping, so you're out there analyzing that. Discounts have creeped up, which you feel it first when that starts to come, but you're not blind, you're just reacting. Why are these things happening? Where is the story of all of this is going? And why do I feel like I'm kind of, moving here, there, everywhere? Level 3 or stage 3 is when things are designed. You have that visibility. So reporting is going to start reflecting your operations intentionally. You don't just see revenue, you're going to see the drivers behind the revenue. Same thing with margins. You're not going to just see the margin, you're going to see the behavior behind it. And cash, you're not going to see just cash. You're going to see runway under multiple scenarios that are playing into that. Because decisions are going to be molded before they're made. So where are you right now? Are you sitting in level or stage 1, 2, or 3? I see most teams usually are sitting in about stage 2 longer than they need to. And that's where leadership kind of starts to feel that heaviness and things are hard. They're not like they used to be when you had just first started things out. So let's look at this. Let me walk you through a real pattern I've seen. Let's say revenue's growing, your team's expanded, inventory's increased, cash is tight, but it's manageable. Nothing's really wrong, but leadership meetings are starting to stretch a little bit longer. More context has to be explained, more spreadsheets are referenced, more logic is living in one person's head. And when we start mapping that information flow from operations to finance to reporting, we start to find that there's some friction points along the lines of that. Let's go back to the e-commerce side. Those e-commerce net deposits are kind of hiding what your discount behavior is. It could be hiding the refund behavior as well because you're not seeing what those true numbers are broken out each month, each week. Inventory purchased without clarity is another thing that pops up because do you know how quickly it's turning over? And if you don't, you're just buying to buy without a real strategy behind it. You're also looking at when it comes to hiring decisions, are they made without really planning out and modeling what would it look like? So none of these are really catastrophic individually, but you put them together and you really start to feel that pressure. Once reporting was, what I would say, I think once reporting was redesigned to reflect your gross to net breakdown, you start to see those skill or not skill the SKU level margins and the clarity and the 90-day cash modeling. So now the tone of meetings has changed, and it's not because revenue really doubled, but because clarity increased. And I stress this a lot about when you have when you have good clarity, you can make decisions a lot easier and you have confidence in that. And now, because you've had good clarity, your meetings are shifting from what happened to, oh, this is what we're deciding to do. And that's where the maturity of growth in the organization starts to pop up. So let's do something kind of fun. I want to walk you through just a live mini diagnostic with me on this. So it's no judgment, it's just going to be more awareness that you're going to find out of where you are. So let me ask you this. Question number 1. If I asked you right now, what percentage of your revenue last quarter went to discounts? The exact percentage, not just, roughly about this number. Could you answer it exactly without having to dig through anything? So on a scale of 1, I have no idea, or 0, I have no idea, to 2, yes, I have clear visibility. We're just going to make this easy. 0, no idea. 1, rough estimate. 2, yes, I have clear visibility of where I'm going. So just jot that down. Second question. Which 3 products or services are absorbing the most cash right now? Not the ones that are generating revenue, but absorbing the cash, meaning the inventory is tied up. You have longer payment terms that are tied up with cash. Do you know clearly? So let's score that the same way, 0, 1, or 2 on that. So question number 3. If your payroll happened to increase tomorrow by 12%, what would that do to your margins over the next 90 days? Could you model it confidently, or would someone need to build a new spreadsheet to be able to do that? So write that down, what your score is. Number 4, if discounting increased quietly by 5% over 2 quarters, would it show up clearly in the reports, or would you feel it first in stress? So your system should see it before your nervous system does. That's always the key in what we want to feel. But how would you feel it? So score that one. Question number 5. If you stepped away for 2 weeks, would leadership have the same clarity you have? Or does clarity depend on you explaining context of what's currently going on in the organization? Score that one. All right. So let's add those up. Where did you get to? If you felt that even 2 of those maybe felt uncomfortable, then you're more than likely in that stage 2 where you're being more reactive in your business. And I always like to point out that that's not failure. That's not nothing. It's just a stage indicator that you're growing. And we have to get some things in place. So let me address something I know some of you might be thinking when it comes to this is, hey, we're not big enough for this yet. We don't need other systems in place, or we just need more revenue. That's going to solve our problem. We don't need this additional software. Or what I hear a lot is, hey, we'll fix it next year. We don't really have time to do it now. We'll look at it next year. And sometimes that's true. You can push things off. But revenue, like I always stress, revenue isn't going to fix those structural blind sites. It's going to amplify them. We already know that. And waiting usually means solving the problem under more pressure. And we all hate that because when you're on a tight timeline, you're making mistakes. Things get to be a lot harder. There's errors that get, put in there. It might just be, it's so much. And that's why you never want to wait till, hey, things are crazy and you're really under pressure to get something done. It isn't about over engineering either. We need to align clarity with complexity. When I work with growth stage kind of leadership teams, we don't start by buying tools. We're going to start by defining what visibility should look like at your level of revenue. Then we map how information flows between operations and finance. And then we evaluate whether your current systems actually support that or if there's some type of gap. And usually you start to see gaps in reporting. You see it in just the alignment of the tech that you currently are using. And then also in that forecasting as well as, can I even look out 30, 60, 90 days and know what's going on? And every business is different, and the work is diagnosing which lever matters in that business at that time. So when architecture aligns properly, something's going to shift. Leadership meetings are probably going to get shorter. Hiring feels modeled instead of hopeful. Our margin conversations are going to come analytical instead of emotional, because now you have the right data behind it to make those decisions. And you're not going to be stitching all these reports together. You're going to start leading with the information that you have. So this isn't about working harder. It's about designing better. It's builders optimizing effort. Architects are, supporting this and putting the right structure in place. And at $1 million, you're going to be pushing a lot harder, because that's what works. When you hit the 10 million, you're going to redesign this load path so that things are, in alignment better. You're not reactive to any of these things. So that's kind of the gist of, if what built you in the $1 million isn't going to carry you through in the 10. And that's, kind of the purpose of what we're discussing today. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking, oh my gosh, this is exactly where we are, it's not accidental. You're likely outgrown the infrastructure that supported you early on, and it's not a bookkeeping issue. It's really just an architecture issue to support you as you're growing. And this is the work that I focus on, helping these teams evaluate where clarity is starting to break down and define what visibility should look like, and design systems that actually support the future decision making. We're not going to go in and just rip everything out. Don't think of it like flipping a house. We don't want to go in and just, knock all the walls down and change everything. It's really diagnosing what things aren't working well and mapping what needs to evolve. And that's what you kind of see with, if we go back to the home example there, if some homes don't need to be fully gutted and redone, they just need a facelift. And that's essentially what this looks like. So if this resonated with you, I would love to hear how it did. I love understanding more about what everybody's experiencing in their businesses, if there's any way that I can help. And if at some point you want to have a structured look at where your gaps are, always happy to have those conversations with you. But yeah, thank you so much for listening today. And, even if you're in that messy middle between the scrappy growth and the structural maturity, just know you're in the right place. And there's just a lot of fun that can come as you're starting to grow the business to that next growth stage. So thank you so much for listening, and I will